Wir wollen einmal mehr Geschichte schreiben für das 53. ADAC RAVENOL 24-Stunden-Rennen auf dem Nürburgring. Emily, ganz wenige Minuten noch, dann fahren die ganzen Jungs und auch einige Mädels raus auf die Strecke und dann geht es in die erste Qualifying-Session.
Ja, hier in der grünen Hölle. Wir sind froh, dass es wieder losgeht. Es ist so schön. Der erste Tag jetzt, wir starten mit dem Q1. Es sind super viele Fahrzeuge gelistet. Es kann nur wild und schön werden bei diesem tollen Wetter, Jan, oder?
Auf jeden Fall. Wir beide sind gestern schon mal so ein bisschen unterwegs gewesen, haben uns die Campingplätze und alles angeguckt. Deswegen weiß ich auch, oder wir beide wissen ganz genau, die Stimmung ist tipptopp. Ich meine, schaut euch das Wetter an, schaut euch diese Atmosphäre hier an. Das geht nicht besser. Es geht nicht besser. So, und du hast es gerade angesprochen, wir gehen gleich rein in die Quali-Session. Und ich glaube, ein wichtiger Aspekt, den wir da gleich noch mit im Auge behalten müssen, ist unter anderem, dass die Liste mit den Top-Qualifying-Kandidaten noch gar nicht richtig gefüllt ist. Da sind noch 5 Plätze insgesamt frei, Emily. Das heißt,
die Generalprobe vor dem großen Rennen.
Zweimal 4-Stunden-Rennen auf dem Programm.
You get one more chance to test the car on this track.
Und jetzt wird es ernst und ich hoffe, alle lassen mal so ein bisschen zumindest die Hosen runter.
herzlich willkommen zu den ADAC 24-Stunden Nürburgring Qualifiers.
Ja, es werden einmal noch Plätze für das Top-Qualifying ausgefahren. Das ist aber auch für alle Teams, die hier teilnehmen, so eine Art Probelauf.
Kevin Estre, ja, zum ersten Mal diese Saison dabei. Mit ihm im Team auf der Pole Position Patrick Pilet.
Für mich erstmal im Regen seit den 24 Stunden letztes Jahr. P1 zu bleiben ist das Ziel und wäre schön.
Rundherum. Erstes Nass am Nürburgring soll sich nicht bessern.
The 5 red lights change to 5 green.
Hase Ansauer mit einem sehr, sehr guten Start von 4 auf 2, kann sich direkt 2 Autos schnappen. Und da geht Menzel mal schön quer durch die Wiese.
War aufregend zu fahren, hat sich eigentlich nicht besonders schnell angefühlt. Wir waren jetzt Zweiter hinterm Scherer Porsche, das war eigentlich deutlich besser als erwartet für das, wie sich das Auto angefühlt hat.
Man kann nirgends mehr Vollgas fahren auf den Geraden, also weit davon entfernt. I think this was the most extreme experience I have ever had here at the Nordschleife.
My heartbeat has never been so fast, driving so slow.
Jetzt, wo man hier steht, ist geil, es hat geklappt, aber es hätte, glaube ich, 60 Mal in die Hose gehen können.
Nürburgring. I mean, that's why we love this track.
Yeah, so today is, I would say, the ultimate test compared to what's coming for the 24-hour race.
So probably the best session of the year, I think.
Traffic free on the Nordschleife is really special, so it's basically one of the best time of the season.
Same scenario that will happen in the 24-hour race for qualifying.
Vielleicht ist dem einen oder anderen schon aufgefallen, dass der Grello mit Kevin Estre gar nicht, der hier in der Aufstellung steht fürs Top Qualifying, liegt daran,
T3s. They've already got the 65 car in, so that is not going to run. The Realize Condo Racing with Rinaldi Ferrari, number 45, is also not eligible, and that, I think, is it. So if you're not in that list, there are 5 spaces up for grabs, but that's only 17 cars, and there's a total of 27 SP9, so 10 of them are not going to make it into top qualifying at all.
I know we tend to focus on the SP9 because that's where our overall winner will inevitably be, and the overall pole position sitter will inevitably be from SP9. But we've got quite a few. I mean, this is multi-class racing at its finest. I'm going to give you the numbers that we've got. So you mentioned, Johnny, 27 entrants in the SP9. The Cup 3 class has 12. The Cup 2 class has 11 entrants. VT2, the rear-wheel drive VT2 class has 10. SP10 has 9 entrants. The BMW 240i class has 9. AT3 has 8. SP8T has 8. These are all classes, by the way, everybody. The SP7 class has 7, aptly. SP3T has 6. The VT2 class with front-wheel drive has 6 entrants. TCR, we've got 6 TCR cars. V5 has 5. V6 has 4. The BMW 325i class only has 3. AT2 has 3. SP2T has 2. SP3 has 2. SP4T has 2. SP Pro has 1. We'll have more information on the class structures, obviously, as we get into the weekend.
Now, if you're a follower of the NLS series as a whole, you'll know that Scherer Sport, Phoenix, previously known as Phoenix Racing, and one of the most successful teams here at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring, they should have appeared with both of their cars in top qualifying. The number 1, the Audi R8, and also the number 16 Porsche. But both cars have been removed out of top qualifying and will have to qualify through the more, let's say, conventional qualifying, thanks to 2 different reasons, 2 different, not errors necessarily. In the case of the Audi, perhaps because it ran to an engine map or an engine homologation that wasn't exactly correct, so potentially not running to the BOP that it's supposed to, and so that has been removed out of top qualifying. Does still mean it can qualify into top qualifying, but it needs to do it in these next 2 sessions today. The 16 Porsche, that has moved from Yokohama tyres to Michelin tyres for this 24-hour race, and that has meant that because it qualified on Yokohama's and is now on Michelin's, it is not eligible for top qualifying. So they will also have to do it the old-fashioned way.
I'm still getting to grips as to which way round they are, because I think the bit of paper that is in front of us is actually slightly out of date, because I spotted yesterday the Audi on Michelin's, so we can scratch the black with the red lettering of Yokohama. That's how they ran at the qualifying races at the end of May. But I'm 99% sure that Scherer Sport number 1 Audi, who is effectively the defending champion, they've now changed to Michelin, so that bit of paper is slightly out of date. But I'm willing to be wrong.
No, and that means that would make more sense, because then the team are running Michelin's for both cars rather than having 2 complicated 2 black round things of 2 different brands in the same garage.
Yes, and Falcon Motorsport used to do that, because Falcon Motorsport, a massive advert for that particular tyre manufacturer, and as if to prove that that tyre was good on lots of, or a couple of different vehicles, they used to run 1 Porsche and 1 BMW M6 in the past, but they are now definitely Porsche through and through, and the 33 and 44 cars who've had a cracking start to the year, and because of that, both cars are already in to top qualifying, which takes place tomorrow, and it's top qualifying, an afternoon session. or an early evening session with another qualifying session after it. And what's interesting to me is that if you don't get into top qualifying, remember the final 5 that are at the moment big question marks, they'll be decided at the end of today. Yeah, 2 qualifying sessions. It has to all be sorted clearly before the top qualifying session begins tomorrow. If you then are not involved in that and you're an SP9 car, you've got to use the rest of Q3 to try and improve your position on the grid from 18th back to 27th. So it is vital, Q3, for finishing up those positions, not necessarily in the dramatic style that we're going to do on the single lap or double lap qualifying.
And with 2 sessions as well, if you can go quicker this evening and better your lap time. Whether that will put you then into qualifying if you're just outside, and you can't rest on your laurels. If you've qualified tonight, this afternoon, you've got to keep pushing, haven't you? Because you can't just rest on your laurels and expect for everyone else to go as quickly as they had in the afternoon. Everyone's going to be honing and tuning set up to go quicker, so you've got to do exactly the same. If you are quick enough this afternoon, you've got to go even quicker this evening.
Joe, you'll probably know better than me, but track conditions, if you have a nice, clean, uninterrupted lap, surely are going to be better in the run-up to the night. We were talking about when sunset is last night, 9:30, 10 o'clock. That would be the perfect time because it's a little bit cooler. I mean, it's dry, hot, kind of Mediterranean heat here at the Nürburgring. It's very bizarre. Nearly 30 degrees air temperature. And therefore, the engines don't necessarily like that as much as a 24, 25 with a bit of humidity in it. And the track's going to rubber up during all of our sessions that we've got. So, yes, we're going to get good times here, but presumably the best moment will be that kind of transition period into night.
We call it the golden hour, don't we? Just before twilight, where the air gets thicker, the engines prefer that. You get a lot more oxygen into the air, into the engines via the air, of course. The track is a little bit cooler, so the tyres work a lot better, and that's when the optimum lap time will come, and the teams will be gearing towards that.
That's not a very cool Porsche.
No.
Burning on the left rear corner. It's the 97 machine. I think I have to scroll quite far down my entry list to find 97. Johnny's got a very clever system.
It's the Julian Ray entered SP7 car. This is the old school way of going Porsche Cup racing, but the engine sits right at the rear of this car, and I'm concerned that that's a flat 6 fire potentially. Oh no, it's
left corner, isn't it?
It's left corner, so difficult to tell precisely, but thankfully the driver is out and be able to identify who is at the wheel of the number 97 car, but that might, left. Go on.
That might, Johnny, be a binding brake that has caused a heat build-up in that corner, because it doesn't look like it's across the car, which would lend me to think that it was more engine area. That's purely left corner, so it might be that part of the engine that's decided to destroy itself.
Very, very early in the lap, Marshall point 33, still on the Grand Prix circuit before going off into the Nordschleife itself. And of course, drivers and teams will do a shakedown lap of just the short Grand Prix track before venturing out onto the full Nordschleife. Just to make sure everything is running, you can do a short lap that is completely part of the regulations, and that will bring out the first slow zone of this year's race.
Brings us nicely, Ben. Brings us nicely, Ben, into telling everybody, if you're new to this race, just what track configuration we're on. I mean, everybody's become familiar via sim racing and gaming on the computer with the Nordschleife. We're on the 24-hour circuit, which incorporates both the Nordschleife and the Grand Prix track, and it's a unique track that is only used for the 24-hour race as well, isn't it? It's also used for some NLS qualifying rounds, but they even changed the configuration of the Grand Prix section. They used the shorter section for some of the rounds. So this is it's a 15.7 mile track, a 25.3 kilometre circuit in its fullest. But as you mentioned there, in these preliminary outlaps, you can decide not to go out onto the Nordschleife and take in the Grand Prix loop and come back around and just take in the short Grand Prix track for a bit of a shakedown before you venture out onto the longer Nordschleife.
Here's something fun and confusing for you. At the moment, we have in third fastest time, we've got it 4 times through. We've got Nico Bastien in the Pro Sport 37 Aston Martin Vantage. At the head of the times, It also says Bastien, but the entry list has got Bastien Bous's name round the wrong way, and so he is being known this weekend as Bous Bastien.
Seems so.
And is on the entry list. So we've got Bastien in first and Bastien in third, but they aren't brothers. And they aren't related, and in fact that's not the right way round to even have his name.
They don't even share a surname, in actual fact.
Yes.
But the timing screen would tell you otherwise. So Julien Rier, who shares with Valentin Lachenmeyer, Mark Trompeter and Ralph Charles. Julien out of that number 97 car, and thankfully it looks like the fire is now out on the rear left corner. The 53rd edition of the ADAC RAVENOL 24 Hours of the Nürburgring for 2025. Ben Constanduras, Joe Bradley and me, Johnny Palmer, from our commentary box situated right the other side of the pit lane here at this fabulous venue, so overlooking parts of the Grand Prix track. And we're bringing to you live the first qualifying session of the week. This is qualifying 1, which will last for 2 hours. And the first 20 minutes, you're not allowed to take your already pre-qualified SP9 car into this session. 12 cars already with that crucial ticket for tomorrow's session. Top qualifying, which begins at 20 past 1 in the afternoon. And then when we get to 20 past the hour of 1 o'clock, within this qualifying session, we'll get a burst, I assume, from the pit lane of those extra 12 cars. This is the first of 3 qualifying sessions across the next 2 days. There will be a warm-up session on Saturday morning / early afternoon, and then the race itself begins at 4 o'clock on Saturday.
140 entrants to the Nürburgring 24 Hours for this year. That is larger than we have had since COVID, and the last entry larger than that was in 2019. It's slightly skewed because actually the entry list into the SP9 class, the main GT3 class, quite a bit smaller than what we saw in 2022, for instance, or 21, but bigger than last year. Last year was 25 cars, this year 27 cars. Do not forget that that also includes the 12 IGTC. This is a round of the SRO Intercontinental GT Championship, which will have its 3rd round next weekend at the Spa 24 Hours. It also participates at the Bathurst 12 Hours. They go to Suzuka for the first time in a while in September, and they round out their year in Indianapolis at the Motor Speedway for an 8-hour race. And as part of, since last year or 2 years ago, they've been part of the the Nürburgring has been part of the Intercontinental GT Series. But just 12 entries from the SP9 class.
I really don't grasp this. Well, I'm going to use the term understand, actually. Why the qualifiers are not allowed out for the first 20 minutes. I mean, is it to give the others a chance to catch up? Because 20 minutes around here is nothing. It's like,
it's 75 in total across the 3 different...
I'm talking about the SP9 qualifiers and those 12 cars that are sat in the pit lane waiting to get out and participate. And I'm not sure whether there's any gain or loss from not getting out there for the first 20 minutes. I mean, it's not like 20 minutes around here is not like a conventional track. We have to recalibrate our minds. Even we have to recalibrate our minds from an 8-mile, a 3, almost 4-minute lap at Le Mans. Here at the Nürburgring, forget that conventional sort of thinking about let's go out and do a couple of laps, because that takes ages. And 20 minutes, arguably, how many laps can you get in 20 minutes? 3, 4? Fast, 3 laps past the pits. You're not going to do that for the first time. You're going to come around the Grand Prix track, check it out, and I'm not really sure why we do that, or why the organisers do that. I'm sure they've got a rationale, but it's way over Bradley's little head.
I wonder whether it's less to compromise the cars that are already in, and it's actually to benefit those that haven't made it yet, and there are fewer GT3 cars on the racetrack interfering with matters, because you've taken, of the 27 that are eligible for spots, 12 are not out there, so that's about 45% of the SP9 entry, so just about half of them that aren't circulating and therefore getting in your way of potential testing. That's the point of the later session today, qualifying 2. The first 15 minutes of that, from 8 o'clock p.m. till 8:15, is exclusively SP9 and SP Pro cars that haven't already got in. So you're going to be What's that going to be? 15 cars? Yeah, 15 cars, effectively, with the Nordschleife to themselves before everybody else joins in. This was a 97 car then that got down to the Goodyear Kehre at the bottom of the hill, the famous hairpin bend on the Grand Prix track. Then Julian Rea giving the right foot to heading towards the Michael Schumacher S, but already I think maybe struggling. Just listen to the background of the car. No, the engine sounds fine, so that really does go towards maybe your theory, Joe, that it was a brake-related issue.
He's slow. He's going slowly, and the engine's pulling well. However, he's going slowly, and he's obviously detecting a problem with the car as he's pulled off, and then it's when the car stops and the airflow stops going through the car, that's when the conflagration takes place. That's when you stop the race car. If you can keep moving, you can keep the fire at bay, but I suspect that might have been a binding brake. Again, just speculation there.
Another car that has caused the yellow flag on the Grand Prix loop is the number 16 that has Patrick Niederhauser aboard at the moment. It's another of our SP9 entries from Scherer Sport, the Porsche that we spoke about a little bit earlier on, and that has ground to a halt and needed to be towed back to pits, and it had only made, well, that's the background rattling noise you can hear. That doesn't sound very nice, but it only made a third of a lap before it needs to be recovered.
No, that doesn't sound well at all, does it? That's getting worse. They're then back to the pits, and this is a car that needs as much time on track as it can possibly get. It's one of the cars, remember, that this is the Porsche, the Series Sport Porsche, that changed tyres from qualifying onto Michelin's for this weekend, so that car needs to qualify proper. It had qualified. However, qualifying on Yokohama's and then switching to Michelin's is outside of the regulations. So we mentioned that, and that car now grinds to a halt.
Sounded flappy.
Yeah, it did. I don't know what on earth that was. That might have been, but it's coming back on the end of a tow rope now.
Very strange to have a drive shaft issue within
this early.
A kilometre of the at the start of the session.
He hasn't been able to abuse the curbs yet, has he? You know.
Well, is that Lawrence Van Toy, the number 16?
It was Niederhauser.
Niederhauser, you said that, beg your pardon. So Patrick Niederhauser, who has had victories in the NLS already this season, but didn't get very far, but just a few corners into the Grand Prix segment of the Nordschleife lap, or the Nürburgring lap. Bear in mind as well, because this is qualifying, you cannot come off the Nordschleife through Tiergarten and Hohenrhein and then turn right and go into the pits, because the coned section prevents you from doing that. Instead, if you've got a problem, let's say on the Dottinger Hohe, you're going to have to go right past the pits, all the way around the Grand Prix circuit, and then in via the back door in this format of qualifying, because there are cones out there for those that wish to just go around the Grand Prix track, lap after lap after lap.
Use the Nordschleife as a development venue for development of its road tyres, the sort of tyres you and I would be buying from any of the manufacturers. They would all tyre test here. So we're in good hands, I think.
We've got an onboard camera, if you are following on the feed, on the Volkswagen Beetle RSR. A couple, of course, fan favourites, including the Dacia Logan, back with us for 2025, and the VW Beetle of White Angel for Fly has an onboard camera and will give us some pretty scary views, no doubt, of GT3 cars whistling past. They're out on the back of the circuit, and I think we've pretty much cleared now all of our yellow flag and slow zones, and we've got a clean racetrack, and therefore times beginning to come back in again. But of course, we're looking at something around the 6 to 7 minute mark total, and 8.5 minutes is the fastest lap time right now on the board.
And remember that we're using the circuit that is exclusively reserved for the 24-hour race and the qualifying races. This is not the NLS circuit, and the differences are, for an NLS meeting, we use all of the Mercedes Arena, which this weekend is actually used as the support paddock, so not accessible through what is normally the first 3-4 corners. Instead, it's the Yokohama S, which is that tricky opening to the lap, the sharp right, sharp left chicane, and then instead of using the Goodyear Spanger, which is a fabulous word, I find, but that is the cut-through route that is used in MLS and, let's say, the Truck Grand Prix as well, when the trucks descend here to the Nürburgring in big fashion. Instead, you bypass the hairpin cut-through, go all the way down to the bottom of the hill, the Goodyear, Cara, the hairpin, and then back up using the Michael Schumacher S, feeding back into where the cut-through feeds back in, rather. We're on the more traditional Grand Prix circuit, and that extends yet further the full track that is in use. 929, the Porsche driven by Michele Di Martino, is one of many Cup 2 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars, and this is the K. Kramer Racing UG example. 48 in a similar livery, actually, because that crew that have had so much success in the Cup 2 division move up into the SP9s for 2025, and could be a bit of a dark horse in the SP9 category. Don't think they're one of the qualifiers yet. No, car 48. Oh no, it is. Car 48 is already in. And finally, then, we're seeing this phase of the session, Ben, when those 12 cars that are already in with their tickets can join qualifying 1.
Yeah, because we are already over 20 minutes into the session. So they're allowed to come in and begin their session. So in which case, how many cars have we not seen yet out? We've got 127 on our timing screens. That leaves us with 13 that have not yet come out onto the circuit. There may well be some SP9s, but looking at the timing screen now, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 SP9s that were prevented from doing those first 20 minutes now out onto circuit. So there's still a few cars missing to complete our 140.
Just want to clarify the 2 Shearer cars. I got that bit wrong. It was the Shearer Porsche that we've just seen being towed back. That was the car that was thrown out of its top quality spot because the recorded engine parameters did not match the reference data of the organisers. So it was outside of that. It's the Shearer Sport Audi. That's the car that's changed from Yokohama's to Michelin for this one. And that's why it's going to have to pre-qualify again. So the number 1, the Audi, that's the one now on Michelin's, not Yokohama's. The Shearer Porsche, the number 16, that's the car. Hopefully can get that car fixed. Whatever it was, didn't sound very nice, but hopefully that's the car that will be able to try and pre-qualify again after having that engine. The engine parameters just didn't match. Basically, they downloaded the data and they were outside of where they needed to be.
And Peter Mackay, who'll be heard a little later on our broadcast, has been interrogating a lot of sector times from the Nürburgring qualifier races, and I think he said to me that the 16 was a standout down the Dottinger Hohe particularly. All the Porsches have looked incredibly strong so far this year, so Porsche generally good across the board, but the 16 was a standout and maybe gave itself away in terms of these parameters. Further investigation from the officials suggested it was running outside of the technical regulations. We can't have that. So it, again, has a chance of taking just those 5 places that are still available. But bear in mind, there are 15 cars trying to get them. Augusto Farfus in, would you believe, the only BMW M4 GT3 entered into this year's race. Normally we have at least a couple of different teams offering us maybe 2 cars each, but it's just the Rover Racing squad, who actually have a different name on the entry list, which puzzled me. But on our timing screen, it is listed as a Rover Racing BMW. The entry list, it says there, the Motorsport Competence Group, AG, which I've never heard of before. We'll call it the Rover BMW, eh?
Yeah, it's
simplify matters.
It's Rover on our entry list, and just with Farfus, Jesse Krohn, Kelvin van der Linde and Rafael Marcello aboard that car. At least 3 of those with Le Mans 24-hour experience last weekend. Only Augusto, though, in the GT3 car. Weird. They are the most successful brand with 20 victories here overall at Le Mans. And some way ahead of Porsche, who were the second most successful. But just the 1 car. 2 BMWs at Le Mans last weekend, and there must be like 9 or 10 at Spa next weekend. But I don't think that's necessarily the excuse, because we would usually see the DTM cars here, and they are not.
Bastian has only done one flying lap. He's still out there. He's out on the Nordschleife at the moment, and he has put in an 8 minute 19.
You're not going to call
he's done 2. Yeah, because that's his name, isn't it?
No, it's not. That's the thing. That's what we're saying. It's the wrong way round.
Oh, it's Bastian Booth.
His first name is Bastian. His surname, B-U-U-S, Bastian Booth. He does quite a bit in Mobil 1 Supercar.
Right, Bastian Booth.
And you told me that last night as well.
Did I?
Yeah.
There was a couple of beers in fairness.
Well, I've got all this information in front of me. I'm just reading off the screen.
Know,
so
yeah.
So Booth Bastian. Shall I come in again? Bastian Booth is quickest with an 8 minute 19, considerably quicker. He's only done 2 fast laps. His last one was 8:35, 8 minutes 35. So his first fast lap was an 8:19. So where he picked that up from, it was obviously a very clear track, and he was able to get through the 25 kilometres unaided, or unimpeded, I should say. So that's the target time at the moment, 8 minutes 19 to be the top of the screens for Bastian Booth.
Yeah.
Yes, we got there. And now it's all changed, Joe, because Chris Hart has just gone across the line.
I expect it to.
In the number 1 Scherer Sport PHX Audi. So this car is a non-qualifier as well to date. And I was just going through how many of those cars in the top 7 or 8 do not have that letter Q next to their name, or the top Q, and it is lots of them, because of course the qualified cars haven't really had a chance to put in a quick lap just yet. But that Audi now on the Michelin tyres that Chris Haase shares with Luca Ludwig and Marcus Winkelhock goes fastest, 8:14.1, which is 5 seconds faster than Bastian Booth's effort.
You've got a car that looks like it's stopped out on track. It's the number 827.
Yeah, Lincoln Co. Hong Kong entered Lincoln Co., which is a TCR car, but not confusingly entered into TCR. It's in the AT3 category, Fancy by Teamwork Motorsport, and they are down at Marshall Point 100-101. So that is the Metzgerfeld area.
The Metzgerfeld is the 2 left-handers that follow shortly after Adenauer Forst. It's a bit more open there. You plunge down into the foxhole, trees left and right and above, actually. Horrendous in the wet that Joe ensures me we're not going to have this weekend. And then all of a sudden you reach a clearing, Adenauer Forst, where the track goes left and right. There's a little bit of runoff, and Metzgersfeld is the very rewarding fast couple of left-handers immediately after that.
And Zhang Qiang is the driver aboard that car. 2 Chinese drivers and a Hong Kong driver. No Works Lincoln Co. drivers. It's not part of or linked to the Lincoln Co. Works TCR team. In fact, they're racing this weekend in Monza, so that would be a bit awkward if they had one of their drivers in this race. A bit too far away to do double bubble, I think. But great to have that brand with us, even if it's not in the TCR category itself. TCR does have its own category and has 6 entries this year, including 2 Works Hyundais, Mark Basheng aboard that car, and of course Robert Wiggins is in the second of the Hyundai motorsport cars in the 831. Watch out for that. He shares that car with the American regulars, Mason Filippi, Michael Lewis and Bryson Morris. Audi, Cupra, Volkswagen all represented in the legit TCR category of 6.
So Chris Haase, as soon as he'd done that time, the 8:14, he's now done a full lap of the Grand Prix track and then pitted. So it's not quite a one and done, an out lap and then a fast lap, and then he's parked it. Bastian Booth is somewhere in the 5th sector, because he's got about 5 seconds to try and find on the German who is quickest so far. Then Augusto Farfus. The 98 crew on the whole are incredibly busy in the Rover Racing BMW, because 3 of those 4 drivers are down to do all 3 24-hour races. So Farfus, Marciello, Kelvin van der Linde, in a list of, I and a few colleagues have reached 7, although Ben's seen written somewhere that there are 8 drivers. I'm now trying to work out precisely who that 8th driver might be, but 7 at the latest count that will have done Le Mans 24 hours last weekend, here in the Nürburgring, and then the Spa 24 next weekend. which is some task. And by Spa, maybe even by the start of the Spa 24 hours, they will be fast asleep. I think there's some suggestion that there might be a bit of a publicity shot with all of their sleeping caps on before we get underway.
What's harder, though? Doing that or commentating on all three, like Bruce Jones and myself?
Well, yeah.
Can we join the photo?
I think you should be there.
Thank you.
Yeah, with maybe just in the background, with a couple of microphones.
You've
We're
got a
doing it as well.
face for radio, though, Ben, so maybe not.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 33 Falcon Motorsport Porsche's just gone across the line, and this is the Julian Andlauer. Who else is in that car? Nico Menzel. And Alessio Picariello, Sven Muller. So they have elected to choose 4 drivers. Seems to be almost the unfashionable thing in some cars now. More so to trim it out and go the Le Mans style of 24-hour racing. I suppose there are fewer driver changes potentially that way, a bit less data coming in as well, and you haven't got that 4th meddling driver saying, "No, I want my car set up this way." But it used to be 4 and sometimes 5 drivers in this race. I don't think there are any 5 driver lineups. I haven't reached kind of entry list page 9 and 10 yet, but it's rarer, and certainly with those factory crews, if you like, not any sort of true factory crews here this weekend, but is it more seamless, do you think, to go with 3 drivers, Joe?
I think it's a big ask, to be honest. It's a very physical track, this. But
people will think, well, you do it with 3 at Le Mans, no problem.
Yeah, but it's a totally different ball game, isn't it? Le Mans, again, recalibrate your mind. It's physically very, very hard, and it's mentally even harder. The range of class runners that we have here, from quite slow cars with the GT3 cars, sort of the closing speeds are phenomenal, and you have to be absolutely on your wits, and that really is very taxing. It really takes it out of you. The physicality of driving on the limit around the Nordschleife is something that we have, read and waxed lyrical about for many years, and it'll never ever change. But I think it's the mental focus that's required to not put the car off, not hit anyone, and that's what takes it out of a driver. And I was surprised. I think we've not had as many 3 driver lineups ever than we're seeing here this weekend, and I'm not really sure what the thinking is behind it.
Well, the other thing is driver availability, because it is an incredibly busy weekend. There's one of the big IMSA races on in the States at Watkins Glen, the sailing 6 hours of the Glen. There's also, I hadn't realised, a British GT meeting on this weekend at Spa, which is an SRO festival, if you like, in the Ardennes, where you have a British GT race this weekend, followed by the Spa 24, where everything's set up and ready to go for the Keystone event in 10 days' time. A car stopped at what looks like Brunchen is the 396 Porsche, and there was an incredibly close moment there where a Porsche of a higher category came buzzing around Brunchen, the right-hander. There's a lot of runoff there, but the car, the V6 car that has stopped for Adrenaline Motorsport Team Manhattan wheels, is in such a vulnerable position, Joe.
He stopped on the line out of Brunchen, using the exit curve out of Brunchen. You're coming back onto the track right where that Cayman is, and this is exactly what I mean about how mentally taxing this race is, because when we get into the race, we've got recovery vehicles. Add in the dark, we're not going to see the wet this year, but add in the darkness, you've got recovery vehicles, flatbed recovery trucks that you have, you're coming through the slow zones, into the slow zone, over the brow of the hill. There is a car that stopped. Now the drivers are receiving the message from the yellow flags and the marshals telling them of the hazard that's around the right-hander at Brunchen. But that's just epitomises and displays exactly what I mean about mentally taxing.
And what we know about the stewards here at the Nürburgring is they are incredibly judicious when it comes to observing slow zones, observing yellow flags. You do not pay attention, especially in these early stages of the weekend, to the yellow flags, to the slow zones, any indiscretion, and you'll get thrown out of the meeting. Yeah. This isn't a slap on the wrist or a silly fine. They just won't have you at the racetrack, and we've seen that over the last few years. During practice and qualifying sessions, you ignore a situation like that because it's incredibly dangerous. It's so dangerous. And that Porsche, obviously the first one that came onto the scene, wouldn't have been warned by yellow flags because it would have taken time to get the flags out. but it's good to see that then everybody else, it's not a slow zone, by the way, it is just yellow flags for the moment, and now there is a slow zone there.
There's a slow zone there now, Ben. I would like to think the driver was unable to get the car off track the way that he's positioned that car. It's obviously just ground to a halt, or and not giving him an opportunity to get clear off and not be as hazardous as he perhaps is at the moment. But like you said, the slow zone is now applied and the driver's being well warned. We'll not have a replay of what we saw there with that Porsche. I'm not sure what the Porsche was that almost hit the Cayman, but thankfully we've got that under control very rapidly.
It's Carlos Arimon, the Spaniard, aboard what is a V6 entered car, rather than it is a Porsche Cayman. We do have a Porsche Cayman class, but if you don't if you are not part of the regulations of that GT4 class, then you are able to enter the car in separate classes, and that's why we have the things like SP8, SP7, SP3, SP4. There's a TCR, but it's not. There's also TCRs not in the TCR class. It really is. Whatever you've got, you can enter here at Nürburgring, and there is a class for you.
We like that. I mean, I know
including a Dacia.
We've had in years gone by a Mercedes Berlin taxi that was, I think it had 1 million road miles on it, and that would enter. I'm talking a few years ago now. It's been a while since we've seen that kind of novelty sort of entry. And we don't have the Opel Manta now, the Foxtail Opel Manta. I think it was 3 years ago that we last saw that car. I think it's actually still here and it's running in the historics, but it's
got moved over.
Yeah, bring a 30-year-old Opel Manta here and we'll find a class that you can run in. And it's a great attitude. It's a fantastic attitude for, run it, give us a look at it. We'll see what class we can fit it in, but we will not stop you racing here. And that's why we get such huge entries.
SP4T and SP3T is where you find the sort of rung what you brung, and there's a Subaru WRX modified car in SP4T, just 2 cars in that, and there's a Porsche Cayman in there as well that presumably doesn't fit quite the regulations of the other classes. We do have the Beetle that we have an onboard camera with, the White Angel Fly and Help Volkswagen Beetle RSR, and then the Dacia Logan from Ollie's Garage is the number 300 machine. There is a Mini Cooper JWC Pro, which we've seen out on circuit as well, to watch out for, is something a little bit different. Samantha Tan is aboard the Mini.
The Mini, yeah.
She's almost exclusively raced BMWs over the years.
She was at Le Mans in the Road to Le Mans race last weekend.
Okay.
Not quite sure how she did.
I can check that in a moment.
I think she was in a BMW there as well.
I'm actually now buried beneath a revised entry list, which I'm trying now to update all my figures with. Because, have you heard of Patrick Pilet?
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't initially on any entry list that I could find, but he's now going to attempt to race 2 cars. So, we were talking about where's the killer driver lineup up and down our pit wall, Joe Bradley, yesterday. Well, can we insert Patrick Pilet into the 911 Grello Porsche, which already had 3 drivers, Kevin Estre, Ayan Guven and Thomas Preining, and Patrick Pilet's going to race that.
That's just putting icing on an already very rich cake, isn't it?
Just. And then also, the number 16 Scherer Sport Porsche is going to have Patrick Niederhauser, Lawrence Vantel, Ricardo Feller, and Patrick Pilet in that as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so thanks to Davey Avema of Sportscar 365 for kind of giving me the nuts and bolts of these changes. The other interesting one is that there's a Pro-Am Audi, the black Jutta racing car, which initially had Frank Stippler's name next to it on the entry list. You can delete Frank Stippler. He's going to be concentrating instead on the Ford Mustang from HRT Haupt Racing Team. But they've replaced Frank Stippler with Pierre Caffer, so that's fine. It'll go just as quickly as it did in the hands of his fellow German. But that, remember, is a Pro-Am car. And then we were reading earlier on today that Timo Glock, after a recent operation, is not going to be able to compete this weekend. So Mike David Ortman replacing him. And let me just remind myself of which car that is. It's the 59 Dual Motorsport McLaren Altura. There are probably other changes. But as I say, this entry list, I think, has only just been released on the ADAC website within the last hour or so, and wasn't quite put into my hands in time for us to be live for qualifying 1.
So Pilet's another one that potentially is doing all 3.
Okay. Yes.
Certainly did last weekend, this weekend, and I don't have 76 SRO 24-hour cars in my brain, but I would be surprised if he's not doing Spa next weekend.
Agreed. I will check that, because I've got a list of them which I can do a quick word search for. But, I mean, Pat Pilet's been joining Kevin Estre in, I'm pretty sure he did the qualifying races, and it may well have just been a two-driver lineup that in Grello for the qualifying races. And I was wondering, where on earth are they going to find a seat for Patrick Pilet? But as I say, because it's so busy with other race meetings happening around the world, this is a slightly unusual position for the Nürburgring 24 hours to sit in the year. It's probably as late as it could possibly be, as the third weekend of June. And not everybody can be in several places at once.
I mean, we talk about recalibrating our minds. We're just commentators. Can you imagine being Kevin Estre? He must be still buzzing after that opening stint of that 963, the number 6 Porsche, last weekend at Le Mans, where he came from the back of the hypercar class and was in contention for the lead and can maintain that contention for the lead almost to the finish. He must be buzzing after that. But again, recalibrate your mind, not just to the track, but to the car as well, because that car is completely different to a prototype hypercar. However, these guys are the best in the world. They are the best endurance race drivers, the best GT drivers, and he'll have already forgotten everything about last weekend. A bit like us.
Quite a few slow zones out on circuit with various cars grinding to a halt. Just a quick note on that Door Motorsport McLaren Artura Trophy 59 car. They were supposed to enter a 720S into the GT3 category, but found issues with that car during running in the DTM, and therefore made a relatively last-minute decision to move to the Artura Trophy car. Guess what? They got it at the start of the week, and so have managed to shake it down at the Hockenheimring, but this is the first outing for the Artura Trophy car at the Nordschleife itself, and probably the first time ever around the circuit for that type of car. There was a one-make series that McLaren have launched 2-3 years ago now, which has two types of car in it, and it's known as the Artura Trophy, and that is where this car has come from. Very much a reliable car to tick off the laps here, but not necessarily a car that's going to participate particularly strongly against other GT4 cars. Therefore, it's not a GT4 car, and it sits actually in where have I found it? In the SP8T category, alongside BMW, a Toyota, an Aston Martin Vantage, and a Toyota Supra.
So that car that's gone off, that has got a distinctive livery that, if you're 10 metres away, looks absolutely beautiful. When you get up close, it's been brush painted.
Wow, nice.
But by an artist. And I forget the number.
It's a 277 you're talking about.
Yeah, the BMW.
Yeah.
We caught a glimpse of it, and it is actually brush painted. It's got a mural on the car that you would think, oh, well, that's an interesting wrap. However, the texture of it is quite lumpy. I'm sure the aerodynamicists will absolutely abhor it, but it's quite a unique car there, and quite a bit of a gimmick, bit of a novelty car to keep an eye on. Hopefully they'll get it fixed. It's not too badly injured.
It does have an oil trail to it, well, fortunately.
It's certainly enough in the week to be able to fix whatever that is.
Klostertal's got a big slow zone yellow flag area, and we're going to get a code 60 also in Eschbach. So we've got a couple of different cars stationary out on circuit right now. Lots of activity on the Nordschleife, as we have yet to see every single vehicle on the entry list. We're still waiting for 6 of the 140 entered to participate in this qualifying session, so that's a little bit of a surprise. Quite a few cars, 12 cars, have been out onto the circuit but have yet to set a lap time, and we are surely nearly into the second half of this session.
I think we're seeing the moving slow zone through. It's now gone through the carousel area from Klostertal, through the right hand up the hill to the carousel. It's now up towards Oaracht, and I think it's because we've got intervention vehicles now. We've got an intervention vehicle at the carousel and an intervention vehicle at Oaracht, and I'm not sure what they're clearing up. So according to our tracker, which is pretty accurate, we've got no cars stopped in those areas. So it might be just to facilitate the movement of the intervention vehicle. Now, can you imagine if you're on your hot lap and you are then disadvantaged by an intervention vehicle in just moving location to get into position to do its job? And that's the jeopardy, though, isn't it? That is the jeopardy of any kind of motorsport, but indeed at the Nürburgring even more so.
It's been a good run for a couple of cars that are guaranteed tickets in top qualifying tomorrow. The 35 car already in, but that is now third fastest in this session. 35 is the Trinity Solutions Aston Martin, and the 33 Falcon Motorsport Porsche for Julian Andlau, Menzel, Muller and Picariello has gone fourth fastest. So the time difference is Chris Haase, we mentioned, coming across the line with the 8:14.1. That's still 5 and a bit seconds faster than Bastien Bous's effort in number 54, the Dynamic GT Porsche. Then 2 already qualified cars. The other car that's in the pit lane is the 98 Aston Martin, which is looking for a spot for top qualifying tomorrow to ensure that it will start at least on the first 8.5 rows, because there are 17 places up for grabs. It's a peculiar number to have chosen, 17, but there you go. It means that 10 SP9 cars will not make it. And it's all one top qualifying session this year. Last year, top qualifying ran, and then if you finished in the top 5 or 6 places, you then progressed into top qualifying 2. But there is no top qualifying 2 session in 2025. Therefore, it's still going to take about 70 minutes to complete that top qualifying session tomorrow afternoon, and a rare treat to have the whole of this racetrack to yourself.
I noticed the car that we saw on fire earlier at the start of this session, the number 97, the Julian Reed Porsche, is back into its garage and having some work done on the back. You saw the damage to the car from the flames that were licking from under the wheel arch. Can't really tell exactly what we've got about 3 mechanics under the rear of that car, mainly on that left rear corner, under the left rear wheel arch. So whatever it is, they are now at work and getting that car back ready to get back on with it for the rest of the week. So the problems that they've encountered nice and early in the week, if you are going to have a problem, now's the time to have it, not during the race, of course.
Rover Racing BMW back out onto the circuit. It is joined by the Lamborghini, presented by the Red Bull Team Apt crew. There are examples of Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2s. I make 3 of them, but there's also the slightly older Conrad Motorsport entered Evo. Remember, that's been Evo'd twice now, the Huracan GT3. So the classic look to the Conrad Motorsport in its teal and black colours for Danny Sufi and Maximilian Paul, amongst others. But Pavel Lefterov, the Bulgarian, has been a relatively late entry into Lamborghini number 7. The lineup for the 27 Lambo: Jordan Pepper, the South African; Mirko Bortolotti has been racing Lamborghinis for many seasons now, Italian; and Danny Juncadella, the Spaniard, who has been racing both LMP2 and Corvette GT machinery recently. So he moves from a Corvette last weekend to the Red Bull Team Lamborghini for the Nürburgring 24 hours.
We've still got the number 1 Shira Sport Audi with the quickest time, that 8 minutes 14.162. That was put in by Christopher Haas earlier. We've now got Luca Ludwig at the wheel of the number 1. Again, I'm not sure they're actually in the fastest configuration at the moment. They're still just finding their feet. I mean, we've had a lot of track time, haven't we? There is a lot of track time on the Lord Cypher every day with tourist laps, yeah. So it's not like we have a fully green track.
But we also do have a relatively significant slow zone around Brunchen to still recover that 396. 5 different zones within that particular code 60. The yellow flags, meanwhile, still covering Wippermann and a slow zone there, but the code 60 much slower. So you've got a yellow flag at Wippermann. That's then into a slow zone, and within that slow zone is 5 code 60 zones. So the circuit itself definitely not available to be faster right now in that section, but we can still see plenty of green sectors outside of around the back of the track.
Shall we take a moment to recognise the Dacia Logan, which is always
Absolutely.
a big fan favourite. Unfortunately, the hazard lights are flashing on the number 300 car. Whether they've
Is that
been...
because it's a hazard, Johnny?
Well, some GT3 SP9 drivers would probably agree with you, Joe.
That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, and it has unfortunately been caught up in the odd incident in recent years as well, not through any fault of its driver lineup, who are, well, in an early entry list at least. Oliver Creaser, who's at the wheel right now, Gregor Stark and Martin Kafka, who go down surely as three of the bravest drivers here this weekend to throw yourself out into a washing machine of SP9 cars and hope that you'll survive the distance.
It's got Ben Constanduras written all over that car, hasn't it? You know, with Ben's C1 experience. It's got Joe Bradley written all over it as well, because I'm fit enough to actually drive that thing. Not necessarily fit enough to drive a GT3, but yeah, I mean, you're constantly looking in your mirrors, aren't you? You're constantly offline as well, I think. The car at the moment just choosing to go around, staying on the Grand Prix stretcher, and continuing another lap. It looks like a bit of an installation lap, doesn't it, to just see if everything's tightened. And
certainly not on the racing line at all, was it?
No, and it's not using all of the road as well. So it's not pushing. I think we're just having a bit of an installation process on that car.
Yeah, and as I said, we're now down to just 5 cars. In fact, that's their out lap. So it's taken them, 45 minutes to come out onto track. They are the latest car to be recognised on circuit. We're still missing 5 from our entry list.
Right.
I don't really understand how that's possible. You know, this is qualifying 1. This is the first session of the weekend. Why aren't you ready to go straight out into qualifying? Why do you wait 45 minutes?
Without identifying them, the thing...
No, thank you.
They're not prepped. There's clearly not... You're either not prepped or you are so prepared and you have so much knowledge of this place that you don't need to go out.
Yeah.
You just don't... And there is also the attrition factor. You mentioned earlier, Ben, how hot it's going to be this weekend. That's going to be a factor in this race that we haven't seen for a few years. And the cars are going to suffer. How many cars have we seen already suffering, being towed back to the pits or being dragged in from trackside? And maybe that's at the forefront of cars' minds, of teams' minds, of not putting excess mileage on the car and just keeping their powder dry for Saturday. That's when they're going to do the maximum amount of laps. If that's the position you're in, well, you know, good for you. However, the boys and girls at the front, they've got to be pushing from the very outset, the first green flag to the last checkered flag. They've got to be optimised.
Well, I reckon I can count 26 SP9s that have all completed at least 1 lap around the Nordschleife. And the one we were waiting for to make it 27, and therefore the full complement, was the Red Bull Team Apt Lamborghini. And car 27 is now circulating. So it looks like we've got all the SP9s at least on the track. Mirko Bortolotti, not sure whether he has turned left at Sabine Schmidt's curve and onto the Hatzenbach, or whether he'll utilise the Grand Prix track one more time. But it should be that we have all 27 cars producing times very shortly. The livery for the Ralph Aron Mercedes from Get Speed, the Estonians at the wheel at the moment, is so spectacular. Joe, you and I were standing in pit lane yesterday, and actually the Get Speed garage door was down as we were having a quick chat. And then all of a sudden, as if they knew we were there, they predicted our presence. The door opened up to reveal just 2 resplendent Get Speed Mercedes, one in this kind of 2-tone purple colour and the other one in the classic Bilstein, but it's been renewed for 2025.
I kind of felt overwhelmed, Johnny, because I'd been saying, this has got to be Porsche's year, the speed that we've seen in the early NLS rounds. But then that garage opened, I thought, can I change my mind? Can I have a Mercedes as my favourite? Because that purple livery on the Christodoulou car is just exquisite. They've got a purple trim to kind of signify the purple lap time that they hope the car's going to produce. Because on our timing screens, when they put in the fastest outright time, the time goes purple, and that's why they've got the same purple stripe down, a dark purple with a lighter purple, the same purple that we're going to see on our timing screens, is what I was told.
we are clearing that incident, which really was just recovering the Cayman. We are now clearing that, so we are going to have a fully green circuit. Those SP9 cars in the early part of the lap may get to Brunchen and not be abated like we saw Ralph Aron be slowed up through the slow zone, and this therefore means on a full lap, even though he's got green sectors in many sections of the lap, he completes the lap over 9 minutes, and therefore it doesn't really challenge the top of the times. Ralph Aron, older brother of Paul Aron, who we know from F2 and Formula E, but they are both incredibly tall Estonians, and so GT racing definitely the way forward. Ralph racing over in Asia for the SRO GT World Challenge Asia Series as a Mercedes driver.
We're getting to the top of the hour, almost an hour completed of this session, and I think it's around about that time that we have a look at the other classes that we're running. We're being understandably focused on the outright speed of the session, and that's an SP9 runner. The Shira Sport Audi still holds that accolade. The Pro-Am fastest car is the Christian Krognes Trinity Solutions car 35. That's leading the Pro-Am class. The SP9 Pro class has been led by the Falcon Motorsports car number 33. Cup 2, we see the 48 Losch Motorsport by Black Falcon car 948. The A2 class, Max Kreuzer Racing with the driver Fugel at the wheel of the 644. That's currently the fastest in that. SP8Ts, their fastest car is the Toyota Gazoo Rookie Racing with Kataoka at the wheel of the 1110, or the 110 I should say. TCR is being led by the number 830, the Hyundai Motorsport Target Competition. Cup 3, the SRS Team Sorg Rennsport 959, that's the fastest in Cup 3. The fastest in SP10 is the number 175 Pro Sport Racing entry. The 83 class has got the other Max Kreuzer Racing entry number 19, that's faster than that one. SP7, the Black Falcon Team Zimmermann, car 70 is the fastest there. Nordic Racing number 347, they're the fastest in SP Pro. SP4T as the Subaru Technica International number 88, their fastest. SP2T, the number 109 Toyota Gazoo Rookie Racing, their 109 car, and then SP3T, and this is what I love about the Nürburgring 24. Car 808, no team name, but the driver at the moment is Obermann. They are the fastest in SP3T. Hello, John Hindhoff.
Good afternoon, everybody. Got a Mini moving slowly just out on the far side of the circuit, and there was an incident, got out of shape. Now, question is, as they were coming through, did they actually hit anything? Left front puncture, I think. Yes, it is. Left front puncture just coming up over the top and down towards Brunchen. And that car's got a very, very long way to come back, sitting on the rim on the right-hand side. It is the 317. This is the Samantha Tam and Toby Goodman in the car. Toby Goodman, the Brit, one of, I think Toby Goodman is the only Brit to win the NLS outright, and he's got an awful long way to bring that car back. He's got the hazard flashes on. It's a very distinctive scheme. It looks white from a distance, but it's got checkers on it and the cross on the roof. And yeah, he's not even back to the Kleiner Carousel yet in that car. So for this session, and until we get to race day, we have the split front straight with the cones out. So the only way you can enter the pits lane is to come in off the Nürburgring Nordschleife onto the Grand Prix track, and then to come a full lap around the Grand Prix track and then back into the pits that way. At that point, actually, you have a choice of either going back into the pits or coming round onto the start-finish line again. Now that obviously will disappear come the race, so that you can come in straight off the end of the Nordschleife. Peter Mackay joins me in the Global Broadcast Centre. Excitement abounding as ever, and finally we've got cars on the track.
At last, yeah, it feels like it's been a bit of a wait to get cars out in anger. We've had some information, if you like, over the course of the year in terms of the performance in the Nürburgring Langstrecken Series races, but also in the two Nürburgring 24-hour qualifying races. The only caveat to that is the two qualifying races, we had one which was wet and one which was mostly dry but with a bit of wet in there as well. The other thing is that a few of the key protagonists for this 2025 edition of the Nürburgring 24 Hours didn't go to the qualifying race. Notably the 98 BMW, the Rover car, which is a car which is a complete mystery to what pace they have. Last year they had their pace in practice and qualifying was okay. In top qualifying they qualified on pole, but in general they were pretty quiet in practice, and then they came alive in the race. Read into that how you want. But here today, I mean, the lap time set by Christopher Hasse straight out of the gates, before we got any slow zones or code 60s or anything like that. In the number one, the defending Scherer Sport PHX Audi, bang, straight on the top of the timesheets with an 8:14.162. That could well be the lap time that gets them into top qualifying, because they are one of 13 cars who have 5 spaces to play for. And that, I think that should be pretty good for getting them into top qualifying with that. And it's not a surprise to see the Audi have good pace. Looking across what we've seen so far, they have been strong. They just haven't quite had the results. But pace-wise, they're looking pretty good.
Got one of the Seat Formentor intervention vehicles out on the circuit at the moment, and that car heading through to the end of the Hudson-back at the moment. Not entirely sure what that is on the circuit for. Fans of the Dacia Logan will be delighted to know that the Logan 2.0 is with us. Car was destroyed, of course, and the shell was a write-off. They decided to upgrade the whole package, and the regulations say that you can transplant an engine so long as it comes from a car of the same manufacturer. Well, Dacia, Renault kind of makes sense. So I believe the engine that they have now is still the 2-litre 4-cylinder transverse engine, but I think it's from an RS Megane.
Right. Well, that is a car you see here a lot at the Nürburgring.
On the truest farm.
Oh, definitely. It's a really popular car for front-wheel drive. Not difficult to drive, but a very, very good car. I used to have a Renault Sport Clio, which again you see lots of them around. Oh, one of the best cars I've ever driven, and I was lucky enough to own one for a little while. It was a really cheap, really cheap car too to run. It was a fantastic little thing. We don't see Renault Clios anymore in the Nürburgring 24-hour. We used to, but the Dacia is very much the anomaly that you only at the Nürburgring 24-hour will you see a car like that racing alongside €1 million SP9 cars.
And it is the Audi, the number one defending champion Audi. That's why it has the honour of taking the number one that is quickest at the moment. From in second place, the Porsche, number 48, which is
that's the Black Falcon car.
Falcon, yes, the 48.
Now that is a Pro-Am entry, but they've had a really strong season.
That's why
actually.
I paused just a little bit.
Yeah,
I thought, hang on.
Wait a minute, that's a new number. Yes, it is. So that they've got a really good.
Hang on a second, Peter. We've got one of the Audi R8 GT3 cars, SP9 cars on the Grand Prix circuit, and it's Christian Krone.
No, it isn't. No, that's the
that's the wrong one. Hang on, stand by, caller. So that is.
It's the number 50 Audi Equipe Vitesse. Not trying to see exactly who is
HEI
right now.
HEI. It's in 30. It's the number 34, is it?
No.
It's in 34th position. It's in 34th position at the moment, not the number 34. We've also got one of the Haupt Racing Mustangs at the side of the circuit as well. One of the bright yellow cars, 63, 64 and 65. And I can't see that close if they're too similar from the distance that we have the picture.
Michael
65.
Michael Heinrich, who was in that Audi, the Equipe Vitesse Audi that ground to a halt on the Grand Prix track.
And the 65 Mustang, we think, out on the Nürburgring. That's just at the top of Schwedenkreuz, just before you head down the top of the Foxhole. And that car's to driver's left. The Audi is indeed the number 50. Michael Heinrich in the Evo 2 version of the Audi R8 already has somebody with him there in attendance. 52 minutes to go in this session.
Shows you how many cars are having problems straight out the box, straight out the trailer. I mean, probably one of the pre-event favourites, car number 16, the Sport PHX Porsche, grinding to a halt with a horrible flapping noise as it ground to a halt. That car is now in the pits being worked on. So it can happen. And like Joe mentioned a few moments ago, you want to have these issues now. You don't want to have them in the race.
You probably even don't want to have them getting close at the race. At least at this point, you've got a chance of a strip down and a rebuild, and not having to go into a 4 o'clock start on Saturday afternoon, having had a sleepless night on Friday night. There is a warm-up on Saturday, and we'll give you the chance, if you have had to do a wee bit of work on Friday in the final qualifying, or should I say in the final practice session. Slight change to the top qualifying, the single car shootout this year, in that there is only one session of that. There's no knockout phase. By the way, it's Olivier Krieser in the Dacia, in the Logan at the moment. We lost quite a lot of the smaller capacity cars. 2 litre now, effectively the smallest engine that you can have. We used to have the sub 1 litre cars.
We've got a few, and the one now I would note is, and I have to say they're my favourite, if I were to have a favourite, were the 2 little GR Yaris's. They're a 1.6 3-cylinder. They're cool little cars. They're turbocharged, of course. So yeah, so they're non-normally aspirated. Sorry, they are normally aspirated.
So they get the multiplication factor for being force induction. But we used to have sub 1 litre cars, Daihatsu Charade and things like that. Then the GT3s, the SP9 cars just got too fast, really, and it made sense. I think the first year we were here in 2007 to do the race, there were 220 cars that took the start. Now the limit by mandate is 170, I think, but we haven't had that for a wee while, although this year an excellent entry, and certainly starting to rebuild.
I think it shows you just the popularity of racing at the Nürburgring, how many people want to take on that opportunity as the Dacia's making its way around towards the Stefan Beloff S with a Ferrari number 45 coming right up behind, and the closing speed is just enormous. But the Dacia is so quiet, you can actually hear the crowd cheering it on as it makes its way around the lap.
I don't think it's been driven at the ragged edge of adhesion. Double yellows coming out of the Stefan Beloff S and down towards the bridge, and that is because we have, I'm afraid, a problem with one of the Aston Martins, and that is one of the GT4 cars, I think, and that looks like a right-hand side puncture. It is the Dumari car, yeah, right rear puncture on that car. Goodyear tyres on this machine, and I'm wrong actually. That is a GT3 car.
No, you're right.
No,
sorry, John. SP8T.
Yeah,
but it appears to be out of homologation of what you would usually see it. So it's a GT4 car with some modifications,
mainly on the rear wing.
Yeah,
which is what
I think
threw me out there.
It looks like a GT3 wing on a GT4 car. I've never seen that done before. But Dumoulin are a family who take part here every year at the Nürburgring.
And that is Maxime Dumoulin behind the wheel, sitting in 55th position at the moment, according to the Limirack.
Fourth in class.
That'll be a hard class to win. Always highly contested. Now let's try and oh goodness, he's just going into the foxhole, isn't he? Just about to go under the bridge. Yeah, he's got a very, very long way around to come back with just under 48 minutes on the clock.
That's going to take him at least 10 or 15 minutes to get back to the pits, at least. And in practice, the last thing you want to do is go too fast. Particularly in practice, you don't want to go too fast and rip a load of damage off.
That must have happened just as he was going on to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, onto the North Loop.
Yeah.
Remember, you can always, even into the race, you can abort the lap before you go onto the Nordschleife, rather than have a problem that strands you out on that long section of this permanent road circuit.
Well, we have seen in the past, 2 years ago, when Fricadelli won the race with their Ferrari, they won the race and got a puncture. They got it just around Galgenkopf, which is just before the Dottinger hole. So they were lucky enough that it happened towards the end of the lap. They still lost a minute. They managed to gain that back through the night with some amazing driving from all their four pilots in that. But the car that they were fighting most closely with was actually the Abt Lamborghini, the number 27 at the time, and they got a puncture around Esbach, which is only a few kilometres further back, but it was enough to ruin the race. They lost, 3 minutes, so they couldn't recover it. So if you get a puncture, more often than not, you will be, that will be your race done. But if you get lucky and get it at the end of a lap, then it still can be done. But what's amazing as well is that when you look at the pole sitting times, you look at the amazing one-off laps that you get here at the Nürburgring 24-hour in top qualifying. If you've never listened to it or watched it before, it's just the most enthralling entertainment on this amazing circuit when the drivers really go to the maximum of what the car is capable of. And what's interesting, though, the last pole sitter to win this race was in 2016, last time Mercedes won it. So do you want to be on pole? I don't know. The stats would say no.
Records are made to be broken, though.
They are, yes.
Grello coming down through Flansgarden and in towards the last third of the lap. Campsite's absolutely jam-packed this week, as always. People coming in nice and early for the bank holiday weekend. It is a bank holiday here in Germany this weekend. Can Güven, the Turkish driver, currently 22nd for the number 911 Porsche. Grello is the colour, because it's a bit of green, bit of yellow. Not Grund, then, or Grelb, if it was in German.
No, the Grello just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
It has its own set of merchandise, that the Grello car now, and has had for a wee while. Can Güven then on his way back towards us, sporting a bit of Red Bull livery on that car this year, through the Antonius Bucher curve, where you really don't turn the wheel, you just look through the corner, still on the throttle, all the way up the hill to about where the surface change is at the end of the barrier on the left-hand side. Then you use the uphill and a bit of braking to get yourself through the last chicane. And Can Güven stops the clock at an 8:41.384. That is no improvement to his time.
No, and at the moment we've got a slow zone at Metzgesfeld about halfway through the lap, which will stop any kind of hot lap being set. But for Manthey, the times are meaningless. They're in top qualifying anyway. They've got a really quick car, and their pace has shown that over the course of the qualifying races, and indeed in the third NLS race, which they took part in and won. But they're a quick car. They actually don't necessarily want to set any headline grabbing times right now.
No. Lamborghini going quickly at the moment. A couple of cars to keep an eye open for. We've got the Engstler Mercedes, the number 14 car, going nicely, thank you very much, but certainly watch out for Mapelli in the Lamborghini, the number 28 car, setting absolute top times in the first couple of sectors. Now, all right, that is only the Grand Prix circuit, but even so, that car beginning to pick up pace.
He's done that and pitted.
He's come straight back in, has he?
Has Marco Mapelli. Interestingly, the Lamborghinis have been showing to be the quickest car on the Grand Prix track over the course of the season so far. Interestingly, must be some one unique quirk of the car. They're one of 2 cars that's had a balance of performance change coming into the race since the qualifiers. So the Lamborghini has been given a little bit lower minimum wing angle and a little bit lower minimum rake. So the car should cut through the air a little bit better and should be a little bit quicker down the straight, which was where they were losing. But the other car that's the big story has been Porsche. Have completely dominated the season in the Nürburgring this year. They've had a very interesting change in their balance of performance. They've had 20 kilos removed, but they've had a smaller air restrictor by 1.5 mil, which means less air going into the engine, and therefore less power. But 20 kilos is a lot to bring off the car. So it's hard to say which one's got more of a. Obviously, you've got one positive performance change and you've got one negative performance change. How are they going to balance each other out? Are they going to balance each other? Well, we'll only really know on Saturday at about 7 or 8 o'clock, I would think.
I think I'll take the weight out of the car for slightly less power.
Round here, I would think so,
because you're talking about lugging an extra 20 kilos about. You take that off, you'll feel that. And this is a long lap. That's additional mass that you've got to accelerate, you've got to turn, you've got to brake, you're going to wear your tyres more, you're going to use more fuel. I think that's a significant move. Amazing that they can. When was that? Was that since the last?
Since the last qualifying races.
Which was when? Last month, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's about 4 weeks ago. So it took me the better part of 5 months to lose 25 kilos. I'm not sure I could do it in 3 weeks.
I can build it on pretty quick.
Yeah.
Kevin Estre getting ready to get on board the 911 Manthey Grello Porsche. I think we're going to see a we always see a determined Kevin Estre, but I think that particularly so. He was not furious, he was just absolutely gutted with finishing second at Le Mans a week ago overall, of course. It was his best ever result there overall. And yet he looked so disappointed because his crew had run the perfect race. Well, and this is where he can set that score right.
I was going to say, Peter, I was talking to some of the Porsche representatives here earlier on today, and they, with the benefit of 5 days since the end of the race at Le Mans last weekend, have basically looked and crunch the numbers, as you would expect Porsche to do, and Porsche Penske Motorsport to do. And they basically said, I'm not sure we could have done any more. And in fact, they said, in all honesty, we shouldn't have been on the podium. And therefore, well done to Kevin and his 2 co-drivers and the team, because we didn't have the pace there. And that car is the one that started from the back of the 21 car field. So I think they come here with at a week's remove, a bit more of a sanguine attitude towards that. The fact that they were only 14 seconds behind at the line makes that story slightly different. But, and in fairness, they did say possibly it might have been a different story if we hadn't lost all that time when the safety car came out, because they were 40 odd seconds up the road. But that said, they, I think, are pretty happy with what they achieved. It's by far the best result that car's had in the World Endurance Championship this season in terms of its performance and being at the sharp end of things.
But it's a big climb down from what they experienced last season when they won the World Championship. So that's the thing, is it's all a cycle.
How do you think that affects the mood here? Kevin is a crossover. Most of the team are different.
Well, Lawrence Vantor, who he was sharing the car with, is in the other number 16 Porsche. I mean, I think if everything you know, if the balance of performance change to the Porsche doesn't affect its performance much, it comes in as the favourite, as a brand, as a car. And one of them, the top running Porsches, are the 911 Manthey car, which Kevin Estre is in, and the number 16 Scherer Sport car, which Lawrence Vanthoor is in. So,
and then you've got the two Falcon cars, which were in previous at the start of the year.
Yes, you do, and that is, I mean, we discussed this a bit when we were on our way over from the mall. Was that I think this could be the best possible chance for a non-Michelin car to win, because Michelin have won the last 7 in a row. They've won 9 out of the last 10. They've been totally dominant, but the Falcon team are getting closer and closer, as they've done many times. They've had a very good run up to the Nürburgring 24-hour, good success in NLS, and the car is quick. And it seems that the Porsche itself, which is what the Falcon team are running, is looking strong as well. So I think this is Falcon's best opportunity to win the Nürburgring 24-hour. So 37 minutes left on the clock, and valuable time. It's not just the SP9 category, of course. There's a lot of cars here, a lot of teams competing all across the various classes, and track time is everything here. Absolutely. At the Nürburgring. Track time is so important. So every single minute of practice has to be used to its maximum.
We've got quite a gap after this. We're not back till 8 o'clock local time tonight, so once the checkered flag falls at 3 here, a 5-hour gap from our side of things before we go into qualifying for just the SP9 cars, and that's just a 15-minute session, and then another 15-minute session for everybody, which is going to be a massive all-skate. Sorry, not 15 minutes. 2015, so 8:15 to 23:30. So that's the longer night session. Tomorrow, the top qualifying, as it's called, is held a little earlier in the day. We'll be on the air at about 1:15. Expected that to take about an hour. Then the third qualifying session is from 4:15, and then we have the Falcon Drift Show later on at 7:30, and then Saturday we start off early with a 150-minute race, the ADAC 24H Classic, and we'll have coverage for that for you. Peter and I getting up early to do that one. Yeah, would we miss that? Not a chance. That's 9 till 11:30 before warm-up at midday for 40 minutes. That'll be Bruce and Snowy doing that for you, and then from 2:30 our coverage of the 2025 ADAC RAVENOL 24 hours of the Nürburgring, and that'll go on until the podium ceremonies on Sunday afternoon, probably somewhere around 4:30. It's always a difficult one to predict, Peter, because there'll be a lot of people still on their last lap, and we have seen classes and major positions within the classes decided well after 4 o'clock here.
Yeah, it can be. It can be where there's obviously post-race scrutineering, and yeah, it's not absolutely in the bank until the final results are published. Let's hope we don't have that situation, because it's always nice to call the race finished as we see it. At the moment, for the times that we've seen so far, and I'm not sure if these will be, apart from the number 1 Audi, I'm not sure if these will be the times that set the last 5 spots in top qualifying, but as they stand, it's the number 1 Scherer Sport PHX Audi, which I think that time will be good enough, of 8:14.162. I think that will get them in to top qualifying already. Then it's actually the number 54 Pirelli shod Dynamic GT Porsche. Then after that, the number 98 Rover BMW, the 27 Lamborghini, the 34 Aston Martin, that's 5 cars? No, one more. And then the number 37 Aston Martin they will all go into top qualifying if you were to chuck out a checkered flag now and not go and do the other qualifying sessions, which of course we will. So and I think it's quite cool that we've got a part of the qualifying tonight with SP9 only, which means they can get a clear track.
Yes.
So important. And I think that's, Joe was touching on it, why do the cars that are already in the top qualifying shootout, why are they not allowed to go out for the first quarter of an hour or so of the session? Again, that's surely just got to take cars off the racetrack and give the other cars a chance to make that run at qualifying.
Conrad's Lamborghini just having a wide moment heading in to what's often called YouTube corner at Brunchen, because there's so many people stand there during test days. Great place to go and watch, actually. I should mention that the race night at ADAC last night was extremely well attended, and as pretty much always, everyone was on their very best behaviour. Proof that sunshine, alcohol and sporting events don't have to turn nasty. And well done to everybody that was there. There was a real party atmosphere. I was down there maybe 45-50 minutes before the cars came down. The police actually were just closing the road as I was coming out of that area of town, having picked up a few supplies for our accommodation. And really good atmosphere. Pavement stacked 2, 3, 4 deep, but everybody being very respectful to one another and to the cars that were still coming through this normal street traffic. It was bedlam by the time they brought the race cars down, but again, a good time was had by all.
Well, this is a big fan event here at the Nürburgring 24-hour. I mean, it just is fantastic. And there was a music festival here a couple of weeks ago, and the place was left in a state. No other word for it. Rubbish everywhere. That never happens in Nürburgring 24-hour. The place is always clean on the Monday morning when everyone's gone home. Now, read into that what you like, but I think it's good, respectful fans. Everybody comes here and has a blast of a time. You know, you will see things around the circuit here that you won't see anywhere else, and yet it's still very respectful nonetheless. And they'll be standing on the spectator bankings watching all the different SP9 cars rushing through the field. In particular, the number 14 of Maro Engel right now, the yellow, black and blue Get Speed Mercedes. The AMG Mercedes have been part of the fabric of the 24-hour for, well, over a decade now.
He wanted to be in the pits quicker than the Milner Motorsport Porsche, so he overtook before the pit lane speed limit line, which is absolutely allowed. That's part of the racetrack. Let's not forget that. And the odd experience, well, odd anywhere else but here, of cars going around on the Grand Prix circuit to rejoin the start-finish straight whilst people were turning off left onto the Hudson back. So 3 different options there as you come through to the chicane at the end of the Grand Prix lap. And a reminder, if you are joining us for the first time around the world on this global broadcast, make sure you tune in time for the formation lap. I know it doesn't sound very exciting or inspiring. Well, it will be on Saturday. I'll say no more than that, but if you haven't seen it before, ensure that you tuned in for when the cars roll off 20 minutes before 4 on Saturday afternoon, because it is a sight for sore eyes. Sun shining, and it is set to be exactly this across the weekend in terms of the temperature and the sunshine. In fact, getting hotter, Peter, tomorrow and Sunday.
It's the warmest I've experienced at this race. Last year we had cooler temperatures, we had fog, of course, which shortened the race considerably. And then, of course, 2 years ago, it was fairly pleasant weather, actually, 2 years ago when Fricadelli took that emotional win with their Ferrari, the first year with the Ferrari. And, it was a huge shock to the paddock. Fricadelli switching away from Porsche, getting into the Ferrari and taking that win. Also another, emotional win. You think Porsche's last victory 4 years ago when Kevin Estre took his first victory here for Manthey, and he'll be desperate to get that win this year. I mean, they had a car to win last year, but the red flag just completely changed the narrative entirely, and who knows if it had run on to 24 hours. But as things stand right now, I think Manthey are looking very, very strong indeed. This session particularly, the only time I think you could really read a great deal into is the top car right now, which is the number one Shera Sport PHX Audi 814.162. We've got a Pro-Am car in second, we've got the Pirelli Shod Dynamic car in third. We haven't really seen everyone turn the wick up yet. I think we'll only really see that until top qualifying or even in the race itself.
It's Peter McKay with me, John Hindhoff, in the Global Broadcast Centre. If I shimmy slightly to the left, pretty much up to the left-hand wall of the booth here, I am as near as makes no difference on the start-finish stripe. And we're, what do you reckon, Peter? 25, 30 metres away from the edge of the track up here?
Yeah, that's a half swing with a sandwich. Yeah, I would say that's about 50 yards. Yeah.
Okay. And great place to see those last lap passes on Sunday. Of course, thanks to our colleagues at Nürburgring TV, we see all around the circuit nowadays, and the helicopter will be up at the weekend. Incredible investment in infrastructure here, with the whole circuit having had the cables replaced with fibre and additional fibre lengths being put in, so there's a plug-and-play type of operation when we have races that need to be covered either on the short circuit or indeed on the Nürburgring itself.
Rover BMW coming down the Dottinger Hole just now, 4.6 seconds off the quickest time, but this may well be an improvement for Raffaele Marciello, who competed at Le Mans last week in the BMW number 15 hypercar, switching from that BMW M Hybrid V8 prototype to the M4 GT3 for Rover, a team who have won this race before with the old M6. The big warhorse that was, big front engine V8, quite a different car to the M4.
Sort of a spiritual success at the 635 CSI, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. And
we've got some of those racing in the Legends later, the classic event.
We do, can't wait for that, can't wait. And up to third goes Raffaele Marciello, 819.181. So that, as things provisionally stand, that puts them further up the provisional order for those. Remember, we're going for 5 spots to get into the pole shootout. There are 12 spots available. There are already 12 cars that are already in it. I'll read them out for you. So we've got Manthey Porsche, the 33, both Vulcan Porsches, the 8 due to Audi, both Get Speed Mercedes, the Rinaldi Realized Condo Ferrari, the number 30 and the number 35 Vulcan Horse Trinity Solutions Aston Martin. Interestingly, their pro car, the 34, is not in yet. The 48 Black Falcon Team Porsche, the number 11 SR Motorsport by Schnitzelalm, and the 65 HRT Ford Performance Ford Mustang. The rest all are vying, all 13 of them are vying for just 5 places. So that is significant for the Rover team to be up there third overall and second of those cars looking for a spot in the top qualifying shootout, which happens tomorrow.
I suppose, as well as checking the track and seeing what performance they can wring out of their cars, this is in some ways a re-familiarisation for some people who perhaps didn't do the qualifying weekend, already had their permits. Aston Martin, by the way, with Nicky Team in the number 34, just going through Brunchen and up and over the top, now into the Serpentine section before he'll turn right-handed downhill. Tremendous section of the track, this. It is just similar enough to other sections to make you think you know it absolutely.
And when you come out of the Bell of S's, you come up towards a really tricky, tightening right-hander in towards Falbenschwanz. That's Kevin Estre's favourite corner across the entire circuit. That's where Nicky Team is coming through right now. And then you quickly flick left to head up to the next left, which is the Kleine carousel, the smaller carousel, and team looking for that first overall victory here, and to do it with Aston Martin would be amazing. Of course, got the Aston Martin's first in the GT3 era anyway. Win at Spa last year, which was really, really cool to see that with Come2U Racing. But Nicky Team's super experienced here, and driving, of course, with winner 2 years ago, David Pittard, who was, from what I understand, quite influential to bringing Valkenhorst and Aston Martin together.
Correct. David's a force of nature.
Yes, he is.
Pretty quietly spoken, but he is one of those people that if he has got something to say, and you know he's got something to say, you'd be well advised to listen to it. Pulling double duty last weekend at Le Mans as a driver advisor for a couple of GT drivers. We did have a bit of a laugh with him saying, what happens if you push the wrong button? He said, oh, that could be bad, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's flat through here with the other drivers going to Mulsanne. Yes, that wouldn't be so good. Up to the line then comes Nicky Team. Does he improve from 9th position? It's an 8:21.505 at the moment. I think he's going to maybe be just shy of it. Is he? No, he does improve. 8:19.899 there for Nicky Team. Car number 34 for Valkenhorst. That puts him up into those provisional transfer spots, if you like, for the qualifying shootout.
Have a look at some of the class leaders with Peter. The usual array of classes here spread between the GT cars and the touring car setup, and 9 different manufacturers.
Yeah, we've got a huge number of classes to run through. They go through this beyond SP9, the Cup 2 category, which is for Porsche 992 Cup cars with a control tyre. They run a Michelin tyre. That's 48 Lost Motorsport who are on top at the moment. Their best time is an 8:31.2. That's quicker than some of the SP9 cars. That's very impressive there. It shows you how strong a package that Porsche 992 GT3 Cup machine is. Then in AT2, that's the alternative fuels category. That is an 8-minute 43.231 for Max Kruse Racing with their 644 car. Then in SP Pro, car 347, Nordique Racing lead the way there. SP8T is led by the Toyota Gazoo Racing Team, car number 110. TCR is led by Hyundai Motorsport. Mark Basseng at the wheel of that Elantra TCR car number 830, and there's an inter-factory rivalry there between the Hyundai Motorsport regular TCR superstars and the young and up-and-comers from the United States, who are very determined to beat their European colleagues. In Cup 3, it's Peter Kate who leads for SRS Team Sorg Rennsport. SP10 Pro Sport Racing lead in number 175. SP10, that is for GT4 homologated cars. The Subaru Impreza WRX for Subaru Technical International leads in SP4T. Alternative Fuel 3, that's Max Kruse Racing as well, car 19. SP7 led by the Black Falcon Team, car number 70. We're scrolling down the more of the order. We go SP2T is led by the Toyota Gazoo Racing GR Yaris, car 109 there at the moment. SP3T is led by the no team name, led by Mr. Umamoto at the moment. How Nürburgring is that? In the BMW 240i class, it's GT Tire Motorsport who lead the way in their 665 car. And then Class V6 is led by the 410 machine, driven by Marshall at the moment. Then VT2 Front, led by the number 480 car. The VT2 Heka, number 504, that's SRS Team Sorg Rennsport, they're the class leader there. V5 is led by the 440 car. And I think that might be... No, we still go. BMW 325i, car 700 leads the way there. Then in SP3, it's car 277, and that is your class rundown. It's quite a rundown here. That is what the Nürburgring 24 is all about.
We keep saying you have to recalibrate your brain even when you've been to an 8.5 mile circuit. This is pretty much exactly twice as long as Le Mans. no major changes in the times. Still the #1 defending champion Audi leading it. Heading on to the Dottinger now. So that was about... When did he set that lap?
Right at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, right at the beginning. Yeah, straight out, bang, straight onto the top of the timesheets for the... it's been driven by Marcus Winkelhock at the moment, but it was Christopher Hassa who put the lap time in at the moment. So we've got 18 minutes left on the clock here in this. There's no sessions are known as practice here. They're all known as qualifying. So we're setting the grid all the way through for the rest of the field out width of the top SP9 category. It's quite important to note that. So every lap is potential grid position, and with a grid as big as this, and some of the classes are very, very packed indeed, it makes quite a difference to be further up the order. In terms of the SP9, well, the jury is out on how important qualifying is. Of course, 24-hour race, you think how important can it be, but we do not have safety car resets here at the Nürburgring 24-hour. Every section of the track can be controlled. It can be taken to just a yellow flag, it can be a slow zone, it could be a code 60, it can be neutralised in certain areas that need to be neutralised to make it safe for the intervention teams and the marshals to work on the track. So we don't bring a safety car out. So therefore, if you lose time, you don't get it back. It's not like in, say, for the example, the IMSA WeatherTech Championship, where a safety car will come out and you'll all bunch up behind it, and you can gain back time that you've lost. Here, it's said when you lose the time, you lose it. So that is one way to look at it. However, we have seen balance performance changes happen on race morning here. It's not unusual for that to happen. So we occasionally see teams not showing their hand until the first few hours of the race. So that's something we've got to keep a watch on. I mean, when Fricadelli won it 2 years ago, they did. We were actually really concerned at how little running they'd done, thinking, do they have a problem? Actually, they didn't. They were just keeping. They had a handful of aces, and they were just keeping it very close to the chest.
What I still find extraordinary about that Fricadelli Ferrari win is there was not one single Ferrari factory driver or full Ferrari factory employee involved in that. Rinaldi was helping to run the car.
Quite a few a lot of red jackets and red shirts turned up on the Sunday morning, weirdly.
Yeah.
But it was quite an achievement for Fricadelli. I mean, Fricadelli had been a customer of Porsche for so many years, and Klaus Abelin, the owner of Fricadelli, was not happy with the support he was getting, and he gave them the opportunity, and they didn't, and he switched, and it was a big shock. It was really a big shock of him going to Ferrari, and also, it was a risk, but it paid off.
Also, if you remember, he continued to compete with the Porsche when Porsche had a falling out with the authorities here about the BOP, and pretty much the only major team that was still running the Porsche was Klaus Abelin, and I think that started the falling out, if there was such a thing. But certainly it felt, Klaus basically is a racer, and he didn't like being told by anybody that he couldn't race, even if that was the people who he got his cars from.
Well, the thing is, as well, is he put in an extraordinary amount of backing to enter an SP9 car is a very, very expensive exercise, and he did so, and as you mentioned, John, 4 drivers that he picked himself. So like you say, none of them were works drivers lent out to the team. They were all picked, some for fairly obvious reasons, in terms of Earl Bamber, Nicky Katzberg, who proper established factory stars. But David Pittard has worked very, very hard at his craft and has made his name on this very circuit. And
that was he was
chosen exactly. And likewise, Felipe Fernandez Lazar, who had he had been part of the Fricadelli setup for quite a while, and that was an opportunity which Klaus gave to Felipe. He believed he deserved the opportunity because he'd lost other opportunities, and that was paid off as well. So it was a hugely emotional day. It's certainly one of the most emotional days I can remember in my career, seeing that white and red Ferrari come across the line and see a journey of 20 years longer trying to win the race overall.
Oh, yeah.
Fricadelli.
I mean, literally down the road. We drove past him, past his premises on the way up. I just heard a thud there, which caught my attention, and that is the Toyo Tires Supra that's gone in hard. It's Kazuto Kotaka, the number 160 car, right underneath one of the camera towers at the end of the Hatzenbach, and actually heard that before we saw it, and that was a pretty big thud with just under 13 minutes still to go. Sitting in 49th position overall. Beautiful dark blue metallic. I am attracted to a dark blue car, as anybody who knows me knows.
Me too.
Yeah.
Amazingly, the Supra looks like it might be able to drive away, trying to pull the car.
He's got a bit of rash on the side of the car. We saw a Valkyrie that had similar rash on the side of the car the other day, coming off the tourist laps and driving on the street.
It was coming towards us, and we thought, oh, look, a Valkyrie, amazing. And then the Valkyrie came close, and then on the left-hand side we saw, oh no, there was just scuffs all along the whole side of it.
Grello in the pit lane, and the front end receiving some attention. New set of Michelin's going on. Actually, that's the same tyre coming off, but have they had a wee bit of a drama? Was in the mid-20s. Kevin Estre has hauled it up to 14th position. It was 22nd when Kevin Estre took that car out. Ayachan Guven did the early part of the session. Kevin Estre has taken over. Obviously, Thomas Preining, the Austrian driver, and Patrick Pilet, the other driver. You'd say that was a decent lineup. Now we've got a GT4 Cayman off as well, and that is a Cup 3 969 car. It's one of the Zorg Rennsport cars, and that's got suspension damage to the left rear. And as I say, it's the number 969 car.
Interesting, Patrick Pilet, he's got a very, very good chance of winning the race this year because he's in two cars. He's in car number 16, the Sherasport PHX car, and the Manthey 911 too. So, yeah, couldn't really ask for much of a better opportunity, really.
What about the regs in terms of how much time you can spend in each car? Because that's quite crucial.
That I haven't checked yet. So, issue for that Cayman was at the Belle of Esses, which is a very fast part of the circuit. Yes, you come out of Flansgarten and then into the Belle of Esses.
It's fast.
Very fast.
In a road car, that's fast.
Yeah, I mean, in an SP9 car, you're pulling over 250k through there. So and you won't, the Cayman GT4 will not be slow either. And that will give the crew a lot of work to do. SRS Team Zorg Rennsport have a lot of cars to work on as well. They've got, actually, I think they're the only team who have got two garages because they're running so many cars.
Them and Adrenaline.
Have they got two as well?
Two. They've got the last two, I think, on pit out, bar one car. There's one car in there that's not theirs. SRS Zorg Rennsport and Adrenaline Motorsport will be the teams that you will hear us talking about in the class rundowns quite a lot. It was left rear suspension damage, by the way. And coming up to that part of the circuit now is the Hankook tyre entry Porsche. Now that's an interesting one. In the Hankook colours. And that car with 4 flashes on. Now, is that just because of the slowed down zone, or does that have its own problem? It came into view very, very slowly, Peter. It's double yellows here, so that's Marco Holz's Hankook Competition Europe machine. So in SP9 for the number 55 car.
This car, there's the white, black, and orange machine. It's a fantastic livery, and it's when we saw it in the pits yesterday when we did our pit walk for Mittwoch Motorsport. As it's now going to be known as. They had a cuddly toy Tigger sitting on the roof, so I wonder if the car has been called Tigger. It certainly Tigger colours. Tigger, the Disney character, that is, of course. I think there is a problem with that Hankook car. You're right, John, because some of the other cars have gone streaming past. So, and I don't see any damage to the tyres. So it could well be something different there.
It's a bit of a worry, isn't it?
There's quite a few. Porsches are quick, but we've seen a few with problems already in this opening session. It's not a particularly long session. We're an hour and 52 minutes in, and we've seen a couple of problems for the Porsches.
So, a couple of quotes coming in. Norbert Siedler, who is in the Audi GT3 Evo 2, the number 84 car. I'm happy to be back. Haven't been here for 3 years. And actually, I didn't want to drive anymore, but then I got a call. It all has seemed cool to be here in the past. Being in a team that's for Austrians is, of course, fun. We'd rather not talk about the weather because you never know at the Nürburgring, but it's looking good. We hope it stays dry. Although we're well positioned in the rain with Michelin. First of all, we want to get the blue light and make sure we get into top qualifying. If we end up the top 10, we'd be satisfied. That blue light, actually, don't all the SP9 cars get a blue light now?
Good question.
Because they changed that a couple of years ago. He's been away.
He's been
away a little while.
Yeah, I presume it must mean that you ought to get into the top qualifying then by what he's saying there. But the idea is that I was sitting in the driver's briefing this morning, and there is no blue flags here at night. There is during the daytime, but not during the night. And the replacement of that is the top SP9 cars have a flashing blue light in the to warn cars behind them that they're coming, because in the dark trying to judge the closing speed is quite difficult, and the speed differential is just enormous between some of the lower class cars and the SP9s.
A lot of drivers talking about how lovely the weather is out there and how they're enjoying the weather. Interesting. Who did I just see that was saying that they hadn't used new tyres yet? They've been, it was the number 175 GT4 Aston.
Yeah, that's probably understandable. Some of the teams have infinite budget where they can throw new tyres on whenever they like. Some of them don't. This is a very expensive exercise for a privateer team, so some of them might keep their tyres for a qualifying run later in the week when the track's rubbered in a bit more. They might think we're going to do it in cooler temperatures because the temperature is pretty warm out there, so they maybe want the track to cool off a little bit. If you've got the resource, perfect, throw them at the car, but it's not always the case. Amazing to see the blue oval here at the Nürburgring. Yes. They belong here racing in Germany, and it's wonderful to see them Ford pair up with one of the top teams here at the Nürburgring, HRT, Hout Racing Team. At the moment, the top running of those Ford Mustang GT3s is in 16th place. It's just been brought into the pit lane by three-time Nürburgring 24-hour winner Frank Stippler, who has jumped across various cars this year, but he's settled in the HRT squad with that Mustang for this year's 24-hour race. Can he make it a fourth win? Well, that would be quite a story for Ford to win on their debut here. But at the moment, their quickest time is 10 seconds off the top time. But I wouldn't expect to see them put some big lap times in early on in the week.
And finally, Peter, onto the start-finish straight, but of course not able to come directly into the pit lane. Here comes the Hankook Porsche. They cannot get access to the pit lane here, and in fact, as they come into the front straight, there's a Golf TCR coming out onto the start line. Those cones will not be there during the race. We have to keep making that point. This is only for these early sessions.
That's right, yeah. So it's just for the early sessions for the qualifying. Basically means that you can go. You don't have to go all the way around the Nordschleife to actually start a flying lap. So that's the idea: is that you cut out the.
And you don't have to come back through the pits either.
Yeah, exactly. So you can just get on with it and get your flying lap in. It's a really good idea, actually, fantastic idea. And then, but in the race, you of course will enter the pit lane in the normal way. as we have the track at the moment is far too covered in yellow flags and slow zones and code 60s for any representative outline lap to be set. Although we have a really clever thing on our timing screen which gives us a theoretical best. So it basically pairs up all 9 sectors and shows you what the ideal lap time would be. Now, but it is still by far and away quickest for the top car, number 1 Cherer Sport PHX Audi. But further down the field you can see that the 34 Aston, its ideal time is an 8:15, but the rest all hovering around 8:18, 8:19. So we still, how much of we have not learned a huge amount from this qualifying session.
Well, I'm not sure the teams actually have either, Peter. I think
they haven't driven. I think it will actually be a really useful session because they haven't driven in anything like these temperatures yet this season.
Well, that is a fair point. Yeah, 3 minutes to go, and anyone who's in the pits now won't get another. Actually, no, of course they will. They would be able to nip out round the back, and that's the advantage of what Peter was saying earlier. But you'd have to go now to get out and round and start another flying lap. The Falcon 888 and the Porsche alongside it. Falcon have down through the years been great supporter of this event, and I think I'm right in saying that every year that we've been here, so that was from 2007 onwards, Falcon have had some interest in the race. They are the official tyres sponsor of the race. Left rear puncture on the Hankook car, and it didn't get all the way around the Grand Prix circuit. But at this point, with 2 minutes to go, it doesn't really matter. They'll use one of the snatch vehicles to pull that out of the way. He's ran past the Hook at turn 1, and they can drag him back into the pit lane there.
That's quite amazing discipline from Marco Holzer for the tyre to just slowly deflate. They probably would have got a warning on the dash that the pressure was dropping, and instead of pushing too much like you would in the race, actually just limped it back very slowly, and the air has slowly gone out of the tyre, and what he's done there is avoided any damage to the drive shafts, to the bodywork. Looking at the Hankook competition mechanics, which I believe have a bit of help from Manthey, are going to be very happy with that.
Spin for the multicoloured, one of the 2 multicoloured Astons, and that I think is one of the SP9 Pro-Am cars. Yes, it is. The Trinity Solutions GmbH car, and it's you've got the entry list there, but the entry list is
there's two pages now. The car number 30,
yeah, that is
for Trinity Solutions. This is the Volkenhorst team coming down into the Goodyear hairpin. It's just actually quite a quick hairpin because it's quite positively cambered and just loops it around. No harm, no foul. If you're going to make a mistake, make it on the Grand Prix track. Don't make it on the Nordschleife.
Well, and you can actually just get back quicker as well, can't you? Because once he gets that fired up and pointing in the right direction, it'll be grand there.
Yes, Christoph Breuer in that car, who was entered on the 786 Lamborghini as well earlier on. Now, I'm not entirely certain if he still is on that Lamborghini. Yes, he is. So he's got. Excuse me, no, he's not. It's Jörg Breuer who's in the number 30 Trinity car, and it is Christoph Breuer who's in the Lamborghini 787. So they're driving along with the team boss, with Henry Volkenhorst himself and Stefan Aust and Christian Ballrath in that number 30 Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT3 Evo. They've got the new Evo package, which was launched last year, and not all the Aston Martin teams have it. A few of them running in the older configuration.
That is effectively the art car for the RTL television telethon, the donation marathon, as it's called, for children's charity. There's 2 cars in those very distinctive colours. Now that I've been told that, I realise that's a sort of a cross between being a TV test card and cartoon kids on the cartoon children on the car. Time has run out on our first session, but of course anyone still on the circuit will be allowed to finish, so we could well get into 6 or 7 minutes of effectively time added on. As long as you've crossed the line to start your final lap. So we could be 8 or 10 minutes beyond that. A couple of people who have just mistimed it coming back on the start-finish straight from out in the pit area. So I can't see any major improvements coming through.
No, they're not, because there's some sector improvements.
Yes.
But there's one slow zone and 3 code 60 zones out on the circuit, so there won't be any lap times. But on the previous lap for the number 33 Falcon car, put a personal best in sector 2, which is the latter part of the Grand Prix track, and sector 6. Sector 6, which is the run from just coming out of Exmühle up to Kesselchen. So that's a good idea of straight line speed up the hill and torque, actually.
That number 969 Porsche we saw in the barriers in the Stefan Bellof S, the information ticker that is on 24-rennen.de, said the car was able to continue with, and I quote, significantly adjusted rear track. Yeah, and a bit of additional rear steering that I don't think Porsche at Weissach had built into that GT4 RS. Sven Muller from the number 33 Porsche 911, one of the 2 Falcon cars, speaking down in the pit lane a moment or 2 ago. The Nordschleife is always something special today. It's very hot. There's generally not a lot of grip on the track, but I think it will get faster with every lap as the rubber goes down. We're all doing our minimum 2 laps now so that we're qualified. Then we'll get into the rhythm and we'll find a setup and then fine-tune it a bit until tomorrow night. In this heat, you sweat a lot and you have to drink a lot, 4 or 5 litres at least. In the car, you have 1 litre for an hour. So that means when you get out, you're usually thirsty. That means you just haven't been able to drink enough. That is going to be a problem this weekend, I'll tell you that. Because it's not getting any cooler, Peter.
No, it isn't. No, it's quite sticky here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So these the drivers at the front of the field, they are proper professionals. They know exactly what it's about. But it's quite a different challenge to what they faced at Le Mans a week ago. Much more mentally challenging over a lap. So much easier to make an error. And the consequences of an error are pretty significant here too. Interestingly, Mattia Drudi is going well in the number 34 Aston Martin for Volkenhorst Trinity Solutions. That is going, he's just set an absolute best through sector 3, which is basically from the Sabine Schmitz curve all the way down to the Kittelbacher Hole just before you turn into Flugplatz. So that's a good indication of, I would say, mid-speed corners. Lots of changes of direction there through the Hansenbach, and yeah, Drudy looking good through there in the Aston Martin. Hard to say really what they've got underneath them, but he's put a very strong time through that part of the circuit.
That Aston Martin that we were talking about earlier on was neither a GT3 or a GT4, as we said. It was running in the different track because it was one of the old GT8s. The GT8R, actually not even that, because it didn't have the, I know it did have the big rear wing on, that was it. I should have known that because I raced one of those all the way back in 2017.
Ah, was it that one, was it?
I don't know if it was that one. I know that car has been, I bumped into my old team manager, actually chief engineer and team manager I bumped into recently. Simon was my chief engineer on that car. I bumped into him at Le Mans, and I bumped into the legend that is Rebecca Kisler, who was our team manager earlier this week. And so that number 140 is a GT8R.
No, it doesn't say that on the entry list. No, it's down on the entry list as an AMR GT4.
Yeah, I as you said, though, it is it's not in the GT4 class, though, is it?
No, it's an SP8T because it had a different aero. It's out, so it's if it's a GT4 car, as it is homologated, it goes in SP10.
Correct.
That is just for GT4. So it looks like it's a GT4 car that's had aero changes rather than a GT.
Which, in point of fact, is what the GT8 was. But it was not. It was kind of refined for here. Much bigger rear wing, which it gives you a lot of stability here, but it does make you slightly slower. Made us quite slow down the back straight at Kota in that car. Our hashtag this weekend, by the way, at RSL_studio, RSL19N24. RSL19N24 is our hashtag. Matteo Drudi now touring in.
Slow zone.
Still in the slow zone for that incident earlier.
But on that final lap, Drudy's showing a little bit of what they've got underneath them in that number 34 Valkenhorst team. This is year 2 of the programme, and they didn't really get the chance to show their ability last year because they were involved in an incident on the opening lap. The drama of the opening lap last year, when we had changes on the grid up to the very last minute. Do you go on dry tyres? Do you go on a cut slick? Do you go on a full wet? And is it going to rain more? Is it going to stay the way it is? It was so tricky. And the Valkenhorst Aston got together with the Get Speed Mercedes on just a difference in tyres between the two of them. The Valkenhorst car was on the drying wet Michelin, and the Get Speed car was on a cut slick. And they got together at Adner Forst. And that just held the Valkenhorst team back, and they weren't able to challenge, unfortunately. But we'll see how they go this year. Intriguing session here, I would say, with the number 1 Scherer Sport Audi going on straight out and putting in that hot lap, taking advantage of a clearer track. 8:14.162. That is the fastest time we've seen in this opening qualifying session. Will that be enough to get them into those top 5 transfer spots into top qualifying? Possibly.
And if you've just joined us and you wonder what we're talking about, there is what amounts to a single car runoff. We don't wait for the cars to do the whole lap, but everybody gets set off at 10-15 second intervals, and that will set the front half of the grid. That comes up tomorrow, and there are 5 spots left in that haven't been taken up by a relatively complex calculation of the NLS and qualifying race results from the earlier part of the season. It only applies to the SP9 cars. Everyone else will qualify with their times in the qualifying session in the other classes. But there's nothing to stop an SP9 Pro-Am car getting into there, and they would be allowed to take their place, should I say.
That's right, or indeed an AM car, because the AM cars are classified as Pro-Am for that. But
absolutely,
that's possible for that. In fact, there's 14 cars that are going for those 5 places, so I don't like those odds, really. So there could be some high-profile disappointments in there. I mean, the cars that are trying to qualify, both Scherer Sport cars, the number 1 Audi and the number 16 Porsche from Scherer Sport PHX, all of the Lamborghinis, the number 7 Conrad car, the 27 and 28 Apt cars, the 34 Valkenhorst cars, so the Pro Valkenhorst cars trying to get in, the 37 Pro Sport Aston Martin, the 54 Dynamic Porsche, the 55 Hankook car, 2 out of the 3 Ford, 63 and 64, the 84 Audi, the 98 Rover BMW, and the 786 Lamborghini.
In the classes, the GT4 class, that's SP10. It was 185 ahead of 187 and 67. I'll let you look through because I'm going to rattle through these. In GT4, 175 Aston ahead of the 187 and the 67. In the smaller Porsche Cup class for the GT4s, it was 959 ahead of 962 and 977. In the BMW M240i Racing Cup, the 665 ahead of the 650 and the 658. In the 992 GT3 Cup class, 948 ahead of 901 and 900. Max Cruiser racing with the top 2 in AT3, 19 and 76 out of the 808, and the 100 BMW 325i heads its class. We'll take a break from track action here at the Nürburgring for a little while, and we'll be back in action with the SP9 cars at 8 o'clock.
this evening. Join us then. Bye-bye.